Imagine all the Israelites and livestock walking into a desert. No rivers, no reservoirs, no supply lines, just sun, sand, and one question every parent in that crowd is asking: where will we find water? This is the situation Moses faced when he led the Israelites out of Egypt into one of the most hostile landscapes on earth. And somehow, they survived. But the deeper question is not just how they found water. It is who was providing it. Nearly 1,400 years after the Exodus, a Jewish scholar named the Apostle Paul wrote something that reframes the entire story. He said the Israelites drank from a rock that accompanied them through the wilderness, and then he identified that rock as Christ. Today, we follow the water from the limestone cliffs of Sinai to that single startling sentence in 1 Corinthians 10:4. The Sinai Peninsula looks at first glance like a place where nothing survives. Temperatures reach 45 degrees Celsius. Rain disappears almost as fast as it falls. But this land has hidden water, if you know how to read it. Beneath the surface lies the Nubian sandstone aquifer, one of the largest underground water reservoirs in the world. In the right place, geological pressure forces this water upward as natural springs. Above it, the limestone plateau is riddled with internal cavities, natural cisterns that collect rainwater and hold it under pressure, invisible from the surface. Then there are the wadis, the dry riverbeds that carve through the desert. They look dead. But dig into the sand just 1 or 2 meters down, and you often find water moving silently beneath, protected from evaporation, accessible to anyone who knows where to look. Ancient desert people had experts called Kanakin who could find this hidden water by reading rock color, soil texture, and plant life. The Bible's description of Elim, 12 springs and 70 palm trees, is not fantasy. It is the reality of a landscape with hidden abundance for those trained to see it. But the water at Elim is not the story most people remember. The story they remember is Moses striking a rock and water pouring out. It happens twice in the Bible, separated by 40 years, and the difference between the two episodes is everything. The first is Exodus 17 at Rephidim. The people are thirsty. They bring what the Hebrews call a riv against Moses, not merely a complaint, but the language of a formal legal dispute. God tells Moses, strike the rock, the Hebrew word sor, a massive foundational boulder. He strikes it. Water comes out. Crisis resolved. The second is Numbers 20 at Kadesh. Nearly 40 years later, a new generation, the same thirst, the same riv. But this time, God says something different. Speak to the rock. The word here is salim, a towering cliff face. Don't strike it. Speak to it. Moses doesn't speak. Grieving his sister Miriam, who has just died, he calls the people rebels and strikes the rock twice. Water still comes out. But God's verdict is severe. Because you did not trust me enough to show my holiness, you will not lead this assembly into the land. Why such a heavy consequence for one act of frustration? The rabbis have argued about this for centuries. Rashi says Moses' sin was his anger. Calling the people rebels was a failure of compassion. Nachmanides disagrees. Moses said, "Shall we bring you water?" making himself and Aaron appear to be the source of the miracle, obscuring God. The scholar Jacob Milgrom offers perhaps the sharpest answer. God commanded speaking specifically to strip the miracle of any appearance of magical technique. A prophet speaking and rock obeying the word that is unmistakably divine. A prophet striking with a staff looks like a wonder worker. Moses had failed to make the distinction clear. The miracle, both times, is real. Geologists confirm that pressurized limestone karst formations in Sinai can release water when fractured. But the deeper point is the timing. It happened when God said it would, because God said it would. Now we need to meet a tradition most Christians have never heard of, but one that is essential for understanding what Paul wrote. In the Jewish world of the first century, a story circulated about the water in the wilderness. The story began as a close reading of Numbers 20. Two things happen in immediate sequence. Miriam dies, and then the water disappears. The rabbis concluded these were not coincidences. Miriam's presence and righteousness had been sustaining the water supply. When she died, the well was hidden. The tradition is called Miriam's well, Ber Miriam in Hebrew. From this starting point, the tradition expanded. The Talmud in NICNT records that 3 gifts were given to Israel in the wilderness through 3 leaders: manna through the merit of Moses, the pillar of cloud through the merit of Aaron, and the well through the merit of Miriam. The Tosefta describes well in physical detail: a rolling rock, porous like a sieve, that traveled with the camp, settled at the entrance of the tabernacle, and flowed in channels toward every tribe. Critically, this tradition predates Paul. The first century text, known as Pseudo-Philo, written before Paul's letter to Corinth, already refers to a well of water following them. The word following is already there. Paul knew this tradition. His audience in Corinth, a city filled with diaspora Jews and Gentiles shaped by Jewish teaching, would have recognized the reference immediately. In approximately 53 AD, Paul writes to the church at Corinth. Some members are eating food sacrificed to pagan idols at public banquets. They believe their spiritual status, their baptism, their participation in communion, protects them regardless of their behavior. They are overconfident in their sacraments. Paul responds with a history lesson from the Exodus. Our fathers were all under the cloud, all passed through the sea, all were baptized into Moses, all ate the same spiritual food, all drank the same spiritual drink. 5 times, all. Paul is building a case. The Israelites had everything: divine guidance, miraculous deliverance, the equivalent of baptism and communion. And then the sentence, for they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. 3 words carry enormous weight here. Spiritual, pneumatikon in Greek, not imaginary, not metaphorical water, but water whose ultimate source was divine, Spirit-mediated provision. The water was real. The rock behind it was God. Accompanied, akalut houses, a present tense Greek participle suggesting continuous, ongoing action. The rock was accompanying them, not once, throughout the journey. Paul is engaging directly with the traveling well tradition his readers know and pressing it toward its ultimate meaning: Christ. This is the identification that changes everything. Paul is not saying God provided water in a general sense. He is asserting the pre-existence of Christ. The one born in Bethlehem was present and active in the Sinai wilderness, sustaining his people centuries before the incarnation. This is the same theological claim Paul makes in Colossians 1, that Christ is the one through whom all things were created and in whom all things hold together. The rock of the wilderness is a specific historical instance of that cosmic role. And then Paul's warning. Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not well pleased, and their bodies were scattered in the wilderness. The lesson is direct. All those privileges, the cloud, the sea, the manna, the water, the presence of Christ himself, and most of them still fell. Their sacraments weren't a charm. Paul's message to Corinth is unsparing. You are no safer than they were. The same rock who sustained the fathers will judge the children. Step back and you see something larger running through all of this. The wilderness story is about a God who refuses to stay in one place. The pillar of clouds, the pillar of fire, a tent, as the dwelling place of the divine, built with permanent carrying poles so it could always move. God's instructions in Exodus 25 are precise. Let them build me a sanctuary, that I may dwell among them. Not in it, but among them. G.K. Beale calls the tabernacle a portable Eden, a sacred space moving through an unholy world. Walter Brueggemann calls Yahweh a nomadic God, deliberately unsuited to the fixed temples of empires, impossible to domesticate. Paul reads this entire pattern through the lens of the resurrection. He names the agent behind it, the pre-incarnate Christ, present as the rock, traveling with the people, refusing to let them be without provision even in the wilderness. This is typology, not allegory, where a story becomes a code for abstract ideas. Typology says that history itself has a grain, and the same grain that appeared in the Sinai appears again in Galilee, in the upper room, in Corinth, and wherever the people of God find themselves thirsty in the desert. Miriam's well remains a legend. No rolling rock has been confirmed, but the tradition points to something the biblical text insists upon. The source of provision followed the people. It did not stay at Horeb while Israel moved on. Paul takes that conviction and names it the rock Moses struck. The well, the rabbis said, traveled with the camp, the water that kept a nation alive for 40 years in a desert. These are, Paul says, the footprints of Christ in history. The same Christ who stands up at the Feast of Tabernacles in John 7 and cries out, "If anyone is thirsty, let him come to me and drink." The well is still following.